Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. Today we are going to be running an experiment about how to make brownies with our prepped and stored materials. So we are going to make this one box of brownies 3 different ways today. This question came up on one of the Facebook groups I'm in. I can't remember if it was one of the homesteading groups, food storage groups, canning groups. Not really sure, but the question came up, can you store brownie mixes, cake mixes, that kind of thing for long-term storage? Would you need to reseal them? What would you need to do? And then when it comes to making them later, what do you need? What are your alternatives to make them with limited options? So how can we prep now and still have brownies in the future as the prices continue to rise? So that brought up some really great discussions. I learned some things about baking powder I never knew. Apparently baking powder goes bad. Oops. But the end result of the baking powder going bad is really just that your brownies don't rise and get fluffy, so they're still going to taste great. They're just going to be a little flat, just like all the brownies I've made from scratch for the last 3 years. So nothing too tragic there, and that's the main ingredient in here that's going to go bad. Everything else in this package is going to be fine as long as you store it properly. These boxes are not made for long-term storage. This bag, not made for long-term storage. Mylar is. So if you repackage it, potentially it could be. So then the question was brought up how to level that up to prepare it even further. So now we're talking about freeze-dried eggs, and then you only have to add oil and water at the end when you're actually ready to make them. And then of course applesauce is a substitute for oil. So we already have some freeze-dried eggs and some freeze-dried applesauce. So here we are, let's figure it out. This is completely an experiment today, so I have no idea how this is going to work out, but we're going to make these brownies 3 different ways. We're going to follow the instructions for 1/3 of the mix, and I can't make 1/3 of 2 eggs, so I'm going to use the tiniest little egg I could find from my chickens instead of breaking up 2 large eggs and pulling 1/3 of them out. It's probably about the same. So we're going to do one just like the box says. We are going to do one where we reconstitute that amount of egg, and we reconstitute that amount of applesauce, mix that all in with the mix, cook those, and then we're going to do one where we add the egg powder and we add the applesauce powder to the mix, and then add all the water at one time. If that one works, that's your ideal solution. You can add all your powdered ingredients at once. The end of the day, all you need when you want to make these is water. The first thing I want to do is split up my powdered mix, my brownie mix. So to do that, I'm going to pour it all into a measuring bowl, see how much is in the package, and then split that 3 ways. So we have just about 4 cups worth of mix. So that's 1 1/3 cup per bowl. The second thing we're going to do is add our eggs. So we're going to open up our raw egg, freeze-dried raw eggs. So 2 tablespoons of eggs and 2 tablespoons of water makes 1 regular egg. I need 1/3 of 2 eggs, so that works out to 1 1/3 tablespoons, which is 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon. And then the same of water. So we're going to mix these in, or mix these up and let them sit for a minute. For our second experiment, we are going to put them in the 3rd bowl dry to add the water all at one time later. For our applesauce, when we measured this out, when we weighed everything after it was freeze-dried originally, we came up with a tenth. It had lost a tenth of its volume in the freeze-dry process after we powdered it. So we need 2.5 tablespoons of applesauce. So that means 1 teaspoon of applesauce powder and about 1.5 tablespoons of water. We're going to stir that up and let it set at just another minute to finish absorbing the water. And in the meantime, we're going to add that mix to our dry mix. 1 and not quite a second teaspoon of applesauce powder. Add our egg to our regular mixture. And then the regular mixture gets 2.5 tablespoons of real oil. Have our normal run-of-the-mill brownie mix. This one, we're going to add our already reconstituted, already scrambled egg. Our already reconstituted looks like regular applesauce, right? You'd never know it was freeze-dried. It was just a funky powder not 10 minutes ago. And then the box calls for 3 tablespoons of water, which we didn't add to the first one. So let's go ahead and add that now, because that is 1 per, right? 1 each. All right, and that one's all nicely mixed up. And our last one, we still need to add some more water. So we needed to add, for the egg, 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon. And then for the applesauce, we needed 2.5 tablespoons. Okay, so we have our 3 different brownie mixes. The original one with all the regular ingredients looks a little bit thicker, but otherwise they all look the same. So now we are going to put them in my little crocks and throw them in the oven and see how they go. So we have our oven, well, my toaster oven, preheating. We've got our crocks greased. Don't ask me where I'm getting the oil from. If we are going straight off of what I can grow here on the homestead, avocado trees growing for oil, but they're about 5 years off. Let's just make them thick brownies and we'll put the whole batch in there. It's fine. They're gonna take a little longer to cook this way. That is okay. Here's our mixes all in the bowls, and as soon as the toaster oven is finished heating up, they're gonna go in there and they should be done in about probably 45 minutes. While our brownies are cooking, a couple things to call out. Our raw eggs in the jar, I went ahead and resealed these. Now these in a glass jar are not gonna last for 25, 30 years, okay? These need to be in a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber in a cool place to last for that long. These are in a jar because I'm gonna use these here and there over the next couple months, okay? This is not long-term storage. If I had wanted to make these long-term storage, I just would have put them in a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber. Since I opened this, what I then had to do was add a new oxygen absorber and reseal it. So these are still good. I'm gonna use the rest of these someday, make more brownies and cakes and whatnot. But to make sure we're still keeping our food safe to use later, you're going to reseal with a new oxygen absorber, reseal your jar. I used the brake bleeder and the vacuum seal jar adapter, and they're ready for next time. Thank you for sticking with us and to see the end result of our brownies. Our brownies are now done. They took about 40 minutes. They weren't exactly even on the amount of brownie mix in each pan, in each dish. But our regular one ended up with a little bit of crust around the edge. The one where we pre-mixed the eggs and the applesauce before adding those into the mix didn't rise quite as much. It didn't get quite as fluffy. And the one where we added in the powder and all the water at the same time actually probably looks maybe the best. It looks like a cupcake, like a muffin, how it popped up. But the real test is, how do they taste? So our standard brownie, nothing special, just followed the instructions. Tastes like a brownie. Our pre-mixed substitute brownie tastes exactly the same. And then our pre-powdered, just add water mix tastes exactly the same, but might be a little fluffier. So if you want to preserve your brownie mix for 25 to 30 years and you're willing to sacrifice the fluffiness, because of course the baking soda baking powder doesn't stay good as long, add in your freeze-dried powdered eggs and applesauce and you are good to go. That is fantastic. I'm gonna get some ice cream and call it a night. Thank you for joining us at Homestead for Life. Have a great night, and please like and subscribe to our channel.